A warm welcome back onto the conversation here on Lagos Television. Of course, before we went on the break, we did tell you that today we have a guest that will be joining us on the program. And it's a pleasure here today to have join us on the program, the country director of the British Council Nigeria. But before we announce our guest today, let me quickly do a brief introduction about our guest. Today, she is the country director Nigeria and director West Africa, British Council. She is accountable for strategic leadership of the British Council's largest operation in sub-Saharan Africa. She graduated from the University of Bradford, where she studied politics and French and studied political science. I'm not going to murder this institution. I bet she will tell you where that is when she comes on set. Okay, briefly said about Lucy. She's here today. Of course, she's been in Nigeria for quite a while. But of course, she'll be exiting Nigeria a few weeks from now. And Lucy on the program today will tell us all about her sojourn, not only in Nigeria, but also at the British Council here in Nigeria. Join us this morning as we welcome Lucy Pearson. Lucy, thank you for being here on the program. Right, let's quickly take you through your journey in Nigeria here as the British Council Director in Nigeria. Of course, also we do know that the British Council in Nigeria is 80 years.
That's right.
Right, so you quickly want to tell us the journey of the British Council here in Nigeria. 80 years, has it been?
80 years, been fantastic for us to be in Nigeria as guests in this wonderful country over the last 80 years. As a leading cultural relations organisation for the UK, providing educational opportunities, we work across the arts and culture, across education and across English programmes, across Nigeria, working with government departments at federal and state level and partners, benefiting millions of Nigerians and particularly young people between the ages of 18 and 34. It's been a wonderful experience. I can only speak of my last 10 years, of course,
right.
But we hope to build on the 80 years with even more impactful programmes impacting the people of Nigeria.
Okay, 80 years is not a joke, and I must say that I like your address top. It shows you're Nigerian. Okay, 80 years is not a joke, and what are those major highlights of your tenure here in terms of education, in terms of relationship with Nigeria in general?
So many highlights over my 10 years here, right from back in 2018 when His Royal Highness King Charles visited. He was Prince Charles at the time, where we were able to welcome him to our office in Lagos with guests and to showcase the vibrancy of the Nigerian art scene and creative entrepreneurs. He engaged with them, he exchanged conversations. That was a real highlight. Also highlights for me personally, getting out there and seeing the impact of our work, the fantastic partnerships that we've got with organisations across Nigeria, and really understanding the difference we make and how we can do even more to meet the needs of the people of Nigeria. Universal Basic Education Board, so I work in basic education. They recognised us last year for our work to basic education in Nigeria. So there's many, many highlights across our work in arts and culture, education and English. Too many to mention, but I remain extremely proud of the British Council's work here.
What about teachers training?
Teacher training indeed. So we've trained over 30,000 teachers already in developing skills, English skills, digital skills, to provide ultimately the young people of Nigeria, the final beneficiaries, 21st century skills to enhance their education, their learning outcomes and their future options and choices and a successful future.
Right, so still talking about some of the highlights of your 10 years in Nigeria here, would also like for you to touch on culture and relationship between culture, and I know that you, of course, you do support many entrepreneurs who are art inclined, so would you also like to share some of the highlights in that sector?
So we've done some fantastic work in our arts and culture programme. You've mentioned culture, working with artists and creative entrepreneurs through our Creative Enterprise programme, developing the skills and capacity of creative entrepreneurs. We know there's some fantastic talent, creative talent in Nigeria, we all see that, but sometimes turning that talent and those ideas into an initiative, into a business, and not just for those creative entrepreneurs to create work for themselves, but also to be job creators and job makers to widen that impact. And we've nuanced, I'd like to think we nuance our approach and our programmes depending on where we're working in the country, because of course there's a great diversity of Nigeria, and what's good in Kano isn't necessarily right in Port Harcourt or indeed in Lagos. So working with partners is really important for us to understand what the needs are of the people that we're working with and how we can infuse that into our programmes.
Okay. All right,
Okay, for you to know the needs of the people, you just told us now that you have impacted the education sector, the arts world, and so many other sectors of the economy. Data is very key, and then we have a bit of challenge when it comes to having data in this country. How were you able to get those data to exactly get the numbers of people in the creative, in the education sector for you to impact?
So data and insights really important, because we need to be sort of evidence-based in how when we design our programmes, what's it based on. And so in 2019-2020 we launched a Next Generation report, which surveyed the views, the aspirations, the hopes and fears of over 7,000 young people across Nigeria. And that was fantastic, rich data, which continues to shape not only our programmes and our strategy, but also that of partners and stakeholders as well, because we don't want that data just to sit on the shelf. But we get out there, I get out there, we've got a fantastic team. So we talk to people, we listen, and hopefully that listening and the information that we pick up, working with partners, whether that's from federal or state levels or civil society organisations, a wealth of data and insight that we bring to our programmes to make sure that we're relevant and serving the needs of the people of Nigeria.
Okay, so what were the main challenges that you faced, of course, in those 10 years? And if there are, how did you overcome some of those challenges?
So I'd like to think, I'm quite a positive person, so I'd like to think not so much challenges,
right.
opportunities. What could we embrace? I think I've talked about the richness and the diversity of Nigeria. So that in a way was a challenge because, as I said, that culture, the geopolitical areas, things are different. So I don't want one size fits all isn't the right answer. So how do we influence and nuance our approach, as I've said? So that was a challenge, or something for us to think about how we can make sure that it's relevant to those groups. And just getting round Nigeria, a country, the scale that it is, because it's important to me that I engage with people, I engage with our partners on the ground. There's one thing sitting in an office reading a report, but feeling it in person. So getting round the country and keeping on top of things. In 10 years, the country's changed, so making sure that we're relevant, we're up to date, and we're connected.
Sorry, Ajibola, if we backtrack a bit, before you came into Nigeria, were there conceptions or misconceptions you had, and then in the 10 years changed for you along the line? Did you see Nigeria in another light before coming in here, and what changed when you got here?
So I was really fortunate that I came to Nigeria for the first time in 1998. So I'd already had a little flavour of the country, which, if I'm honest, really sparked my appetite and interest to come back. Absolutely. So when I was fortunate enough to come back in 2014, with some trepidation, because it was a big job in a big country.
Right.
I put aside what I may have read in the news, because I don't think that gives a fair reflection of this wonderful, wonderful country. I wanted to see it for myself, form my own impressions, which I absolutely have over the last 10 years.
Yeah, most definitely. Before you go, you'll probably still need to open up a bit on some of those impressions and what you'll be taking away from Nigeria. But of course, that's after we've taken away all the seriousness. So, Ajibola, your next.
All right, Lucy. Like Abimbola rightly said at the beginning of the program, you are a graduate of political science and politics, and here in Nigeria, we still have a bit of problem of insecurity, domestic violence, and of course, good governance. So how has your experience as a political science student helped you in impacting Nigeria in terms of insecurity, good governance, and raising awareness about domestic violence?
So I think from a personal perspective, maybe this is coming across, I'm very much a people person. I like to connect, and I think some differences in understanding can be bridged by connecting people which is also what the British Council does, and an organisation with our values are aligned. So connecting people, listening, understanding, creating a safe space for people to come together, to talk and to resolve differences. And we've done this a lot through our programmes in Nigeria. We've worked with some conflict-afflicted states to build peaceful resolutions to some challenges. Every country faces these challenges. We're seeing it increasingly around the world, and I hope the work that the British Council has done has brought some positive, peaceful impact and change to very many societies and communities in Nigeria.
British Council, 80 years in Nigeria, but of course you've been here 10 years. What were some of those things you brought with you that has impacted the council itself in terms of deliverables to Nigerians?
So I mentioned British Council being values-based. I'm a values-based person, and the British Council, if I can take a kind of inside and going out example. So we focus very much on equality, diversity and inclusion. People are at the heart of what we do. So in terms of our work in the British Council internally, very much treating people equally, fairly. Everybody has a voice, everybody's voice should be heard, and that then infuses through into our work and our programmes. I brought in recently, well a few years ago, an internship scheme. So every year we take on 10 interns for a period of between 6 and 12 months. Half of those interns are people living with disabilities, because we want to give everybody a chance of experience working for an international organisation and skills to help them forge their path in the future.
Okay, was there a criteria for the internship?
Mainly around potential and enthusiasm, and somebody who's going to soak it all up, take on the experience and turn that into opportunities for the future. We're about to launch it again soon, so if people are interested, keep an eye on our socials.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, during your 10 years in Nigeria here, are there specific initiative or project that you initiated during your time that will remain unforgettable in your mind?
Wow. Many. So let me start with an arts example. So we created the Lagos Theatre Festival, a fantastic event. I've been many times myself to Freedom Park. And again, that was about working with artists and creatives, from producers to directors to script writers, to develop their capacity, put on the Lagos Theatre Festival, which was recognised once as one of the leading festivals in the world. So LTF was a really memorable moment. Thinking about our work with young people and schools, the recognition that we do for people that have sat Cambridge exams. Every year we recognise the talent in Nigeria, but also on the world stage, and also thinking about the world stage, UK alumni, so Nigerians who studied in the UK, have come back to Nigeria, have made a real difference in their societies and communities, and every year we recognise alumni from Nigeria who've made a difference, and some fantastic alumni from Nigeria have gone on to be recognised again on the world stage for the difference that they've made. So there's so many examples in the creative sector. You mentioned before about our work with teachers, and are working with the Universal Basic Education Board to implement core skills into the curriculum and amend that teacher training initiative pre-service, as well as teachers that are serving.
Earlier you talked about partnership. We do know that the council is also big on collaborations, partnerships and all of that. But there's also this misconception about funding of the British Council. If you'd like to clear the air, how has local partnership helped, especially some of the projects that you've also initiated at the very grassroots, where, of course, you did not get government support, or all of this came from the council itself?
Yeah, so a significant amount of our income comes from either the UK government or from what we call client-funded programmes, so delivering programmes on behalf of the European Union, for example, or the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. But we can only do that working in partnerships, so whether that's with federal government, state government, civil society organisations, and those partnerships just bring to life our programmes. The partners are on the ground, they understand the communities that they're working with. And it's not, partnerships isn't always about money, it's about reach, it's about impact, sometimes it's about leveraging on a brand.
Okay.
But working in partners, really for me, it's about building that mutuality, that trust, and working together to deliver those sustainable programs. And I say sustainability because we can't continue to do everything everywhere. So if we work in partnership, we're building capacity of partners and beneficiaries, and some of that work can continue. Lagos Theatre Festival is a good example.
Okay.
We step back, but that work continues.
Right, but do you choose your partners? Do you choose your collaborators, or it's open and anyone can wish to collaborate?
Yeah, so we do choose, but a bit like the internship scheme, we've got criteria. One of those criteria are organisations that share our values. Of course,
Okay.
we have to do due diligence. So there's quite a lot of criteria that we go into. But we choose very carefully our partners, and we also want to give an opportunity to new and emerging partners. It's not always about established organisations, because we're very much about building the capacity, and particularly of young people in Nigeria.
Okay, does the same criteria apply to those directors and producers that you work with in the creative sector as well?
To a point, but we've also launched an arts programme called So Creative that's available online. And again, we've found that some artists that come to us perhaps haven't always got some core skills in place, if I can call it that. So we launched a So Creative programme. I think it's a 12-week online programme that people can do at their own pace, so that they've got some fundamental skills and experience in place to then take them to the next level when they engage in a British Council programme.
Right. Very quickly before we move on, I'd also like for you to speak broadly about the examinations that you conduct at the British Council. One of the biggest that you do is the test of English. And but I think also there's a misconception about that examination amongst the young people. So anyone who's watching today, who's preparing for that examination, what are the do's and the don'ts?
Okay. So as you mentioned, I mean, we run a number of examinations, from Cambridge schools that I've mentioned to professional examinations like the ACCA accounting. But you've mentioned IELTS, English language testing examination. So we've a huge amount of free materials to help people prepare for their IELTS examinations. Again, that's available on our website and through our social media. And I think it's important to state, because British Council delivers the IELTS examination. We don't set the criteria.
Okay.
That's either the UK government, if it's for a visa, or the host institution, if it's to study abroad, for example. And we deliver the examination in Nigeria to high standards, because it's an important examination. We want to make sure that compliance is in place. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so did you leverage on your experience here in Nigeria to deal with some other African countries under your authority here in the last 10 years?
So I'd like to think yes is the short answer to that question, but I'd like to think I've taken on so much experience, so much learning from my colleagues in Nigeria, from the people that we've worked with. Let me start by sort of describing, if I may, sort of some words that for me bring to life the people of Nigeria. All positive, and I say this because I'd like to think some of this has rubbed off on me. So resilient, vibrant, creative, innovative, so many positives, and some of that Nigerian vibrancy, innovation, energy, entrepreneurship, I'd like to think has rubbed off on me, and I will take this. I do to my work already in West Africa, but when I become regional director and I move to Kenya, I'll bring that Nigerian spirit with me.
Okay. Of course, you've travelled across a few states in Nigeria due to work and all of that. If you were to look at the different challenges that some of the different communities also face, how can they be better harnessed when it comes to states also working together for common values, shared values, and also interpreting some of the shared values of the British Council to some of those grassroots communities?
Yeah, thank you. So the work changes, and I mentioned about the focus being different sometimes depending on the needs of the communities that we're working with. In a country, I think the scale and diversity of Nigeria, I think we, the British Council, and I'd like to think partners and our state governments, can learn more from each other.
Okay.
Yes, there are differences, but there's also more that brings us together
Sure.
and we have in common. So rather than reinventing the wheel, what's worked, what's not worked, what could we do differently? And through our programs in Nigeria, we do this. We learn from our experiences, but also we nuance it. So what's worked in Kano, change it a little bit when we're in Lagos, and working with, again, stakeholders so that they can help steer our thinking on that. But I think this resources are finite. Our resources are finite, state governments, Lagos government. So what can we learn and build on what we've already done?
Okay. All right. Ajula, go ahead. And
Are there specific programs of the British Council targeted at the female gender, especially the girl child?
So across our work, women, I mean young people, but women are also, you know, a key part, a cross-cutting theme, we like to call it. So there's one, I just want to give an example. I know we're talking in the LTV in Lagos, but there's one example, for example, a programme that we're running in Kano State, Skills for Inclusive Digital Participation, which specifically focuses on marginalised communities, women, girls and people with disabilities, because our data has told us they have fewer chances perhaps than others in the community. So again, we take that learning and we bring it here. So I work in our schools programmes again, I focus on women, our creative enterprise programmes, a focus on women, and our internship programme, as I mentioned, also people with disabilities and women. So it's something that we continue to focus on and go back and check that we're actually delivering on our promises.
All right. The British Council, of course, in Lagos here, I'm sure that part of the 10 years you stayed largely in Lagos. Am I correct?
I've lived here. I'm a Lagosian. I've lived here for 10 years.
Okay, so let's talk about your Lagos experience. What makes Lagos thick for you? What is it about Lagos that you probably will not forget in a hurry?
Wow. I think it's just the vibrancy and the
vibe.
energy, the vibe, the hustle, I just look, and the creative scene. And I say this personally, you know, from going to Freedom, just the arts and the creative scene and the pop-ups, and I've seen that grow in the 10 years here, and I think to have that on our doorstep is such a privilege, and how we've seen the Nigerian and the Lagos creative scene to the world, you know, particularly with music, but also with film, with fashion. I think to have that on our doorstep in Lagos is an absolute privilege.
Okay, Lucy, let's talk about local food. Is there any particular local food that you like, music, movies that you can never forget?
Where to start and stop? Everything from, I mean, I've had to get the pepe sauce. I've had to build up my resistance to some of the spice. But everything from amala to suya. I've got to say jollof rice though. And my friends across West Africa are not going to thank me for this. But of course, Nigerian jollof with the smokiness that comes through. But if you've got a recipe for me, because I've not mastered cooking it yet.
What about music?
Music? Everything. What Burna Boy, D'banj, Davido, Thames. I've got a Spotify playlist, and my Nigerian playlist is coming with me.
I wish we could have played music for you to dance here today, but unfortunately, we cannot do that. But of course, you've talked about your. When you came in, Jabala saw your adire. How much of this are you also big on when it comes to the local fabrics?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I think I love that rich culture, the heritage, the story that comes through with the fashion, as well as supporting creatives and entrepreneurs personally through our work. But I'm proud to be Nigerian and to wear this, and it's fantastic. I think the fashion is wonderful. I'm taking, my suitcase is full.
Okay.
Lucy, sometimes do you also enjoy the traffic of Lagos?
No. The wahala of the traffic of Lagos. Maybe I won't miss that too much. But
So, how much of the local language have you also picked? You just said wahala. So, any other Yoruba word you've picked, or any other local parlance that you've picked that, you know, from time to time you get carried away and you say, just latch on that?
So I think my favourite phrase is no wahala.
No wahala.
Being a positive person. But I love the greetings. How far? I day fine. I love. But I've tended to pick up a little bit more pidgin because I think if I focused on Yoruba, then I'm excluding the other main languages.
Valid.
So
something more common.
Yes,
that
that
everybody
unites
can resonate
the-
with.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so the pidgin. So how far now?
how far? I day.
So
Right.
what are your major takeaways from Nigeria in the last 10 years that you'll never forget and they'll keep coming to you all the time?
So I think the culture, the music, the fashion, the resilience, the entrepreneurship, the vibrancy, everything that I've talked about already, which boils down to the people. The people of Nigeria, the warmth, the fun we've had through our work with our colleagues across Nigeria. Last week I toured Nigeria, it was quite emotional, but I toured Nigeria, I went to our offices in Kano, Port Harcourt, Abuja, and then we had the grand finale in Lagos. The fun, the laughter, the dancing, yeah. So I take all of that with me, but it's the people that come with me to Kenya.
Right. So, of course, your profile by October 2024, you would have been with the British Council for 29 years, and 29 of those years you spent in Nigeria, and now you're moving on to Kenya. Correct?
That's right.
And so you will be the West Africa countries operation. And so, what are some of those things that I know you mentioned a few earlier in Nigeria that you've learned? Leadership, personality. You move into another African country. Will any of those things you've learned here, will they work for you in any way?
I hope so. So I moved to Kenya in about 10 days'
You've been
time.
emotional already.
I know. You see, you make me cry.
Oh,
No, it's happiness.
Oh, okay.
So I moved to Kenya in 10 days' time as Regional Director of Sub-Saharan Africa. So 19 countries that we're physically present in come under my leadership. Dozen more countries that we work cross borders. And I think that in those 10 years, my experiences, what I've learned, some things, of course, that I've got wrong, that I've learned from, will come with me. And I think that's really about connecting, listening, really understanding the culture, what makes people tick, how to get the best out of people. And I'll take that with me and know it'll be a bit different in Kenya or Uganda but I'll take that with me, and I think connecting, building trust, but ultimately it's about those people-to-people relationships. And I think if you can build a relationship with people, so much positive comes from that.
Okay, your success story in Nigeria for the past 10 years couldn't have been achieved alone. Would you describe the competence level of those Nigerians that worked with you?
Wow. Honestly, I'm privileged to be here, and I'm privileged to have a fabulous team. We've seen a few examples. We've seen colleagues from the British Council in Nigeria go on to take senior roles in the organisation, whether that's in the region, in sub-Saharan Africa, or at a global level. We've had an unprecedented rise of colleagues from Nigeria in the British Council, disproportionate, I think, to the number of people we've got and compared to other countries that we operate in. And again, I think it's that drive, that resilience that pushes people forward. But the fun, as well, of course, some brilliant experience and skills that people have. But I think that Nigerian resilience and spirit really helps push people forward. And I'm absolutely delighted that our colleagues of that talent is recognised on the British Council world stage.
Okay, so at least maybe 2 of them are here. They won't hear this. So if you have the opportunity to say something to the team you've worked with, the people you've worked with at the British Council, what would you miss most about them?
I'll miss everybody. I'll miss all our colleagues across our 4 offices. I'll miss just the diligence, the hard work, but the creativity and themselves. They bring themselves to the work. We work together as a really strong team, and I'll miss everybody for the individuality and the experience and the thought that they bring.
So your sons, are they moving to Kenya with you?
Wow. So, yeah, yes. So my son has finished school. He was at Lagos. He was at school here. My daughter was also at school in Lagos. She's now at university in the UK.
Okay.
But my son's wound up school and he's coming to Kenya with us. And he sent me messages in the UK at the moment. And he said, okay, Mum, when you pack the suitcase, bring some suya.
Ah.
So I've got my Nigeria shopping list for him to take to Nairobi.
Oh, okay. All right. Jibala, any more question from you?
I just wanted to ask you that, okay, now that you're leaving Nigeria, do you plan to be coming from time to time to come and feel the vibe again?
Yes, so I will be back. I'll be back. So I'm certainly coming back at the end of November. So we're going to host a ministerial education conference, Going Global 2024. So I'll be back at the end of November. But Nigeria remains a super priority country for the British Council. It's the largest operation in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a priority country for us, one of 5 priority countries across the world. So I will absolutely be back. It's my home. I'll be coming back to Lagos and I look forward to coming back to Nigeria.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, your final words for the Nigerian government, the government of Lagos. I mean, Lagos is your landlord, however you want to look at it. So what are some of those things that you wish when you come back to Lagos or Nigeria? There are things that, you know, could be better.
So I mentioned the focus of the British Council on young people, and particularly for us 18 to 34. I think that focus on, they're our next generation. I think that focus on young people, increasingly young people having voice, agency, that voice being heard, and those aspirations being addressed and put into effect. Young people are our future in Nigeria and across the world, and I think for them to have the focus and the airtime that they deserve, I'd like to see that happening even more in this wonderful country.
All right, thank you so much, Lucy, for finding time to be here. We appreciate it, and we wish you the very best as you go to Kenya.
Thank you so much.
All right, of course, we've been speaking with Lucy Pearson here, of course, of the British Council, and she's taken us through her journey in Nigeria. We do hope that when next Lucy is in Nigeria, we'll catch a glimpse of her. We'll take a quick break. The conversation returns shortly.